Welcome, everyone. This is Mary Duskwood, Director of Operations and Research here at Burtch Works. Today, our founder and managing director, Linda Burtch, will be sharing her predictions for the 2021 data science and analytics hiring market. And now I'd like to introduce your speaker for today, Linda Burtch. Linda is an industry leader in the analytics and data science recruiting space and has dedicated her career to becoming a subject matter expert on quantitative hiring market trends. She's a frequent speaker on career and hiring topics and is also an active member of the American Statistical Association and Informs. She often shares her insights on the Burtch Works blog. For those of you who aren't familiar with Burtch Works, we're an executive recruiting firm specializing in quantitative fields like analytics, data science, and marketing research. Over the past several years, Burtch Works market insights have been repeatedly mentioned in the press, including The Economist, The New York Times, The Wall Street Journal, CNBC, and the Chicago Tribune, among many others. Burtch Works has also been repeatedly recognized by Forbes as one of America's best recruiting firms. And now, Linda, I will turn things over to you.
Well, thank you, Mary. That was a very nice introduction. And good morning, everybody. Let me just start by saying last year was about as unusual of a year as we may ever see in our lifetimes. So on that foundation, I put together a list of predictions for where I think the data science and analytics hiring market is going to go this year. I have to apologize because we are running a little bit behind on this. But the good news is that's because it has been a very, very busy first month on the recruiting front. So I've been a little bit distracted that way. Now, some of these predictions are for trends that are becoming clearer on the short term, but others I'm thinking we might see as the year progresses. Now, of course, who could have foreseen in January 2020, when my last list of predictions came out, just how quickly and drastically things were going to change, and also how quickly we would all have to adjust to those changes. So now with the vaccine rollout beginning to pick up steam, I think we're all relieved that there appears to be light just visible at the end of this COVID-19 tunnel. I always like to say that things are constantly evolving and that we can all benefit from being adaptable. And I've always said to my audience that the most important thing for you to do is to continue to learn and to change. I think many would agree that that message has never been more accurate than it is right now. So I'd like to take a moment to look forward and envision how the quantitative market will continue to take shape as we move further into this recovery. So on with my predictions. First, the interview process will be forever simplified, and I think that's a good thing. So the vast majority of the quantitative workforce quickly pivoted to a 100% work from home model last March. We conducted a flash survey in April of our contacts, and out of the 345 responses that we got in within a 48-hour period, only 2 people were continuing to work periodically in their offices, and in both cases, only for a couple of days a week. So after a pretty abrupt, I guess I should say a very abrupt halt to all hiring in March, activity started to come back in mid-May. I was wondering if companies would hire really relying only on a video call to interview prospects, because that has I've not seen that in the past. But to my surprise, the remote model was enthusiastically embraced, and some real positives came out of it. So what made things simpler? Lots and lots of prospective candidates were working from the privacy of their homes, and of course then had greater flexibility to schedule interviews. Also, Hiring managers were not traveling and had a less complex schedule and could be available for candidates. So it was much easier for the two of them to get together. Now, this resulted in a drastic reduction in the time that it takes to get through the interviewing process, with offers coming out within a 3 to 4 week period versus what we normally see, which is typically an 8 to 12 weeks pre-pandemic. Also, start dates were compressed. Nobody had to relocate immediately, which during normal times would add another 4 to 6 weeks to the process. So that also sped up the whole hiring process. The other thing I might add is that the hiring or people became more active on the market during probably the summer months, I would say, because they were able to, they were working from home, so they were able to more easily look at market options. So why would we return to the old ways once the pandemic is over? I just don't think that's going to happen. I could see many organizations eliminating in-person meetings up until maybe the very last stages. So again, this will greatly compress the time it takes to complete an interview cycle. Now, that's good news generally, right? But I also am going to bring up the downside to that, because it's going to become more and more important to very quickly vet candidates if you're a hiring manager, because these candidates, and I'm seeing it now, they've gotten, the market generally is red hot, plus the competition is fierce, plus everybody's going on and off the market quickly and looking at a number of options quickly. So moving swiftly is more important now than it ever has been. So the second prediction is that retail and restaurant industry jobs will come roaring back. Now, we all know that some retailers never skipped a beat when the pandemic hit, and in many cases, they even flourished. Certainly that was true with e-commerce only models, like with, in the case of Wayfair and Chewy as a couple of examples. But many retailers, and even more so restaurants, have been hit really hard. So for these organizations, some will have a slower recovery, but many will come roaring back with customers anxious to resume normal shopping and traveling behaviors. And I could also see many people going into shopping and vacation overdrive. I, for one, can't wait to have somebody else cook me dinner and clean up after me and my husband. And many of you know that I love to travel. So my husband and I actually were supposed to go to Tunisia last March. So I, for one, can't wait to get back to traveling again. Now, airlines, on the other hand, will likely struggle for a number of years. Leisure travel, I think, will recover very quickly, but the business traveler, who makes up about half of the pre-pandemic air travel population, will likely continue most of their client interactions via Zoom. So this saves the consulting firms time and money, and likely will lower their employee attrition rate with this sort of reduction in travel. That's all very good for them, but really not good for the airline industry. So prediction number 3, data science and analytics talent is, yes, really moving away from California. Now, we know that this trend had been picking up steam over the last several years, so before the pandemic hit. But once people got in the groove of working remotely, the idea of going back to a multi-hour daily commute in the San Francisco area, combined with, and in Los Angeles also, but combining that with high rent and high taxes have made this exodus a reality. Now, this has resulted in kind of a push-pull for companies. The idea of lowering their office space footprint and associated costs is very appealing, but at what cost will this be to, let's say, collaboration, and also the importance of creative combustion, and that's something that the West Coast, we know, is so famous for. So a couple of anecdotes from some of our candidates I wanted to share. First of all, Heidi Kalish, who's one of my senior recruiters focused in the financial world, she has a client that's based in Utah who asked her about candidates coming out of California. Apparently, they had been seeing a significant uptick in the number of applications from people wanting to get out of California, and they wanted to understand if this was happening with other people that Heidi was working with. And of course, Heidi said, yep, that's for sure. Now, Katie Ferguson, another one of our senior recruiters that you probably know, she heard that Bay Area companies are now filling any new roles that they have in offices at other locations besides San Francisco. She has a friend at Salesforce that told her that they have to hire either in Toronto or in Indianapolis for their teams moving forward. They are not to add staff in the Bay Area. Many of you probably saw the Wall Street Journal article this morning that talked about this very issue and focused on Salesforce, in fact. Also, I know that Charles Schwab is no longer adding any headcount to their San Francisco office. New hires are going to be either in Austin, Dallas, or Denver. So this trend, I think, is only going to accelerate. Now, in contrast to that, though, next slide for me, please, Mary. The fourth prediction I have is kind of in contrast to what we just talked about, in that downtown offices will continue to prevail, notwithstanding what's going on in California. It's pretty unlikely, I think, that technical talent, quantitative talent, will want to commute to, let's say, an office in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is about 20 miles outside the Chicago Loop, or to, let's say, Greenwich, Connecticut, instead of commuting to an office in Manhattan. But there may be no more hard requirements to be in an office 5 days a week. Office settings may turn into more of a hoteling model, perhaps. You may no longer have your own desk, and it's even less likely you'll have an office all to yourself. Now, Sandy Marmot mentioned to me, who Sandy, many of you know, one of my senior recruiters, that she spoke to somebody in New York who said that there is no way that he's going to commute from his New Jersey home to his Manhattan office 5 days a week anymore. And then he added that if they'll make the role fully remote, he's willing to take a $20,000 pay cut. So hiring managers, keep that in mind. Now, every year, there's a topic in our work world that becomes so ubiquitous, it reaches all corners of the population, and even to those not in the everyday work world, like our grandparents. In previous years, those topics have included artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency. This year's topic was easy. Everybody now knows what WFH stands for. So we are now getting closer to life, getting back to normal. So recently, we wanted to better understand how people felt about going back to the office. So we conducted a flash survey in order to collect some numbers on this. So we asked, if you had a choice, work from home or not, which would you choose? Now, I wanted to only offer these two options in this case, because if I offered a hybrid option, everybody would pick that. So these results didn't really surprise me. 75% said they would prefer to work from home. So we broke down those numbers by level. And many of you already know our levels, but for those who don't, let me just review those quickly. We use this kind of breakdown in our salary studies every year. IC, of course, stands for individual contributors, and it's broken down by IC 1, 2, and 3 by number of years experience. And then MG, of course, stands for manager, 1, 2, and 3. And that is more broken down by scope of responsibility. So who's the most enthusiastic to return to the office? I think, everybody, when they think about this, know this. It's the IC1. So people who are in the first 3 to 5 years of their career. They like the free breakfast, they like ping pong at lunch, they like the happy hours after work, they like the camaraderie of other young people. So, and the other thing I might add is learning remotely is a real challenge for people. Now, MG2, which is the director or senior director level, that was second, closely behind that. And then the lowest, again, no surprise here, was at the MG1 level, which is likely, that captures likely mostly people that are 10 to 15 years into their career, and chances are they are at the most intense family time portion of their lives. So, and especially with work from home, everybody knows how intense that time can be. So then the next question on this survey, we asked if there was a hybrid model that was offered, what do you think the optimal number of days in the office would be? So 2 days a week came in first at 31%, followed by 3 days a week at 26%. So only 3% selected being in the office 5 days a week. So we thought this is kind of interesting set of numbers for hiring managers to understand and know about. So there are many industry verticals and applications that have become even more important over this last year. Now, first of all, of course, anything related to supply chain and logistics. We all know that demand for delivery has exploded, especially for that last mile. And this part of anyone's business is really complicated, and it is, of course, very costly, and it needs to be done well. So optimization experts with backgrounds in, let's say, operations research are front and center these days. The other vertical that is red hot is healthcare analytics and health tech. Digital transformation is front and center in traditional healthcare settings, like within the payer side of things, meaning the insurance companies, as well as the provider side of things, so meaning hospitals, doctors, and so on. Then there are the new health tech firms that are bridging an information gap, and investment dollars are flocking to this field that's relatively new. I mean, it's been around for, 7-8 years, but now it's really exploded. So problems that they might be working on would include things like figuring out incentives to encourage healthy behavior through let's say, tracking via an app, identifying opportunities to reduce costs in service delivery, or to maybe better understand the patient journey in healthcare and finding inefficiencies and improving on those. There's also tons of opportunities in value-based care and population health management. Now, and I haven't even touched on what is happening with things like better screening and diagnosis and treatment using artificial intelligence and machine learning in things like imaging, drug discovery, and genomic research. That is all huge. Number 7, increasing numbers of analytics graduates are boosting the talent supply. Now, that's generally, I think, a good thing. Thinking back, or looking back, in 2008, there was only one graduate program in business analytics. and now there are over 300. So as these programs continue to graduate significant numbers of these analytics professionals, the gap between supply and demand is going to obviously naturally shrink. And this is the case actually at the junior end mostly. Now it's going to take a lot more years for the gaps at the more senior end of the spectrum to close. So next, but sort of the flip side of number 7 is number 8, that I think there's going to be a shakeout of these Masters in Analytics programs. Now, we've all heard about the financial struggles in academic institutions even prior to the pandemic, and now it's critical. Also, even pre-pandemic, lots and lots of MBA programs have been under pressure, and many schools have closed their programs. I suspect a number of these newly created Masters in Analytics programs will also come under scrutiny in very short order. So I suspect there's going to be a thinning out process, and I think that's going to start this year. The other target for thinning is the data science bootcamp. They are charging a lot of money, and they are promising great results. But the actual delivery has been disappointing, both from the students and hiring institutions. So if you're considering that, do your homework, be a little bit careful. So I think, and this is kind of an easy, this is a gimme, 2021 is going to be a better year for bonuses than it was for 2020. It was a rough year for bonuses last year, and many were either greatly reduced or in lots of cases entirely eliminated. Now, we wanted to understand the numbers around this a little bit better, so we surveyed our contacts. So this survey was conducted in the very final weeks of December, and at that point, we found that 29% of data science and analytics professionals in our network knew that they were not going to get a bonus for 2020. That number has never been like that before. Another 26% were still uncertain at the end of December about whether or not they were going to be receiving their bonuses. So it's been a very busy start of this year, as I mentioned earlier. So my expectations this year are that the bonuses are going to reflect this really solid recovery. Number 8, everybody will be biting their nails to get new data science and analytics salary data. So salaries are always probably our most popular topic, and the webinar that we produce every June for the last 8 years really, sort of we break records every year with people interested in compensation. Our data collection period coincidentally ends in April, so we should be able to provide what I might describe as a pretty clean look at the pandemic's economic impact and hit to the data science and analytics compensation. It's really hard for me to guess right now, but again, hiring is really strong, and there seems to be a lot of business confidence out there. So I think that there will be some industries where compensation will show some softness, but overall, I don't expect any sort of a significant dent. Early on in the pandemic, it seemed like there was there was going to be a significant and lasting impact, but the recovery during the summer was very quick and kind of startling, actually. Now, we're getting close to the end of the presentation here, but I wanted to share a little bit more data with you. Now, this was the result of a very recent survey of our contacts asking if their analytics group had hiring plans for their first half of this year. No surprise, 73% of the companies said yes. Now, contrast this to last year, which was, again, a pretty strong economic environment in January. we had just 68% say yes. So the numbers, I think, are also, once again, showing a very positive outlook. So that's what I got for this year. So once again, time will tell how well I do. I know I say this a lot, but I want to once again thank you all sincerely for staying in touch with us and also engaging with our community. And I couldn't do these surveys without you. And I try to make it easy, but I know it takes time. So thank you so much for participating. Now, also, I just want to add that I do count many, many of you as my friends, and it's been a privilege to have an opportunity to work with you over these many, many years. And I got to say, you taught me everything I know about analytics. So let's stay in touch. Let me know if you need help with your recruiting, both for permanent jobs and also keep us in mind for contract roles too, or if you want to do some brainstorming on your own personal career strategy, I'm available for that too. So on to the favorite part of the presentation, at least it's my favorite part, questions. Also, I want to encourage you, if you have comments or anecdotes that you want to share, love to hear those, so don't be shy. So now I'll hand things back to Mary, who has a few announcements first, and then we'll get on to the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That was a great presentation. So as you said, a few quick items before we get to the Q&A. If you're interested in our salary data, our full report breaks down salaries by quartiles, looks at salary means as well as medians, and examines salaries by demographic factors like industry, gender, region, and much more. And this year includes our analysis on COVID-19 impacts to the analytics community as well as developing hiring trends. And you can download that report for free at burtchworks.com/study. And if you're looking to add to your data science and analytics staff, we'd be happy to speak with you to do some brainstorming. We offer contingency and retained services from entry-level analysts all the way up to chief analytics officer searches. And as Linda mentioned, this includes both permanent and contract roles. And additionally, we are offering contract services, and this has been a highly requested area over the past year. So send an email to info@burtchworks.com if you want to learn more. And if you want more hiring market insights, check out burtchworks.com/blog, where you can find results from our flash surveys on SAS, R, and Python preferences, what motivates analytics professionals to change jobs, the bonus flash survey, etc., as well as advice on resumes, interviews, evaluating job offers, and much more. And you can also follow Burtch Works across our social media channels to stay up to date on our latest research. And at youtube.com/BurtchWorks, you can find recordings of our other presentations, including our data on data science and analytics salaries, SAS, R, Python flash survey analysis, and tons of career planning videos and more. This recorded webinar will be available there as well. And now to Linda's favorite part of the presentation, we have our Q&A. So let's get started with a question that we had sent in prior to the webinar, asking about how to get back into the workforce after stepping back to, take care of family, etc. Especially, I know this is coming up for a lot of people in the COVID era.
It's a good question. And the answer is, what I say to everybody to do during the entire course of their career. You cannot step back from learning and continuing to evolve and change as our industry changes. The technology is moving too quickly. So if you step out for 3 years and you're truly not involved in what's going on in analytics, that's a mistake. You really need to, if you have time, or you have to really make time to make sure that you keep your skills as up to date as you possibly can, because the industry is changing so fast.
Absolutely. And then here's a question about a specific trend. Do you have any information about trends for product management roles?
Mm-hmm. That's a role, that's a title and a role that we're seeing tons of now. And 5 or 6 years ago, we never really saw that. Or it was kind of a part of the job of an analytics professional. But now they've carved out this product management role, which I think is really an interesting option for people. But because data has become it has been productized by many, many organizations. Everybody's trying to figure out how to monetize the data that they're collecting. Product management roles have become really front and center. And in order to do that well, you have to have a quantitative foundation. So it kind of offers an entirely different career path for people. It's been around, but not to the degree that it is now.
Yeah, excellent. And then, as you said, work from home is sort of the topic du jour. But what about long-term remote work trends? What do you see happening, post-pandemic, 3-5 years down the line as far as remote work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I keep thinking it's going to spring back again. Everything goes in, these ebbs and flows. And right now it's all about work from home, and everybody's, sort of applauding the fact that, they didn't skip a beat and pivoting to a work from home environment. But I'm wondering 5 years from now if it's not going to snap back into, sort of emphasizing the collaboration and in-person work that we were so used to pre-pandemic. I mean, I don't know, time will tell. I could be wrong, but I'm wondering if maybe it won't go back in that direction.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And then as far as corporate restructuring due to COVID-19 and how to position yourself when you're looking for your next role, when your position was restructured, any advice there for job hunters?
Well, just be honest. If you lose your job under any circumstances, you need to be honest about that with your employer and make sure that they understand, the circumstances behind that. It's not, it happens. It happens a lot. It will likely happen to almost everybody at some point in their career. But again, you just need to make sure that you're really honest and transparent about that. You don't want that to come out during a background check.
Absolutely. And then we have a question about shifting industries, specifically for people who are managers, senior managers, et cetera. And, if you need to shift your industry due to COVID, what's your advice there to break into a new industry?
Yeah. And this is something that, as I give career advice that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. It's easy to pivot industries or pivot applications early on in your career, let's say in the first 7 to 10 years. Then it gets hard. So it's really important to lay a wide foundation early on in your career, and then you can sort of pivot back from one to another, or you have the ability, you've proven you have the ability to be able to jump from one industry to another. If you have significant experience, let's say in retail, and you're interested in getting out, the easiest way to do that is through people you know. So through people that you've worked with in the past that have been able to break out of that industry and move on to another. They know your work, they know who you are, and can put in a good word for you. So that's the best way to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your questions. That's all the time we have for today's webinar. And remember, if you'd like to discuss your hiring plans or see if we have roles that are a fit for your background, please email us at info@burtchworks.com to start the process. And Please, thank you all for joining us. As Linda said, we
Yeah.
couldn't do this without you.
Yeah, right. And, Mary, I just wanted to add too really quickly here that, I just wanted to thank you, Mary, and also Stacy Basowski, who is our behind the scenes social media director. The work that we put out, or the content that we put out, is all original. It is not pulled from, other people. It's not written by an outside person. This stuff is all developed in-house, and we could not do it without Mary and Stacy. So they work very closely with the recruiters to talk about topics that are of interest to you. So the energy and time and thought that Mary and Stacy put in are second to none in the industry. Nobody else does what you guys do. So I want to give you a little applause there, Mary. So, and Stacy.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. We have fun doing it.
Oh, good. I know it is. It's really fun. It's very satisfying. I'm a numbers geek. I, studied industrial engineering back in the day. So I love doing this stuff, and I couldn't do it without the audience too. So thank you so much for being involved.
Yep. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.